Okay, just doing a new thing where I talk about a movie that I kind of saw today. So I was on Criterion Channel. I saw Hardboiled. Hardboiled is a 1992 movie. It's directed by John Woo, and it stars Chow Yun Fat as Tequila, and it stars Tony Leung Chu Wai as Ah Long. And so just to get started, I thought Chow Yun Fat played the character very charismatically, Tequila. I really liked what they were going for with him. He kind of had this thing going on where he was really into jazz music and was a jazz musician. I thought that that paired very nicely and kind of contrasted him being a hard-boiled, off-the-beat detective when he had the thing going on where it's like, you can't be trusted with the case, you're off the case. And then obviously he's like, oh, I'm not going to listen to you, I'm going to do the case anyway. I felt like it could have been very cliched, and it was at points, but I think him having a little something extra going on did really good for the movie. I also think that the movie did a really good job of humanizing its characters to keep you kind of engaged inside of the story that was happening, so it wasn't just action set piece to action set piece. I think this is done very well when you look at Ah Long's character. Just to be honest, Tony Leung Chu Wai is one of my favorite actors. Haven't seen him in a movie that I disliked, so just kind of get started with that, saying that I really could identify with his character in the movie, even if I don't know his lived experience personally. As this undercover cop who has to do terrible things to make sure that he can catch the people, he has to really deal with the terrible things he does in the movie, whether it is killing two cops. I think that they kind of subtly foreshadow his character arc by kind of showing him in his boat a lot of the times, kind of showing that he wants freedom from the life that he is in and that he feels like he can't escape. That kind of does get said more explicitly later on in the film after he kills the second cop and tells Tequila explicitly, like, my goal is to move to Iceland, I want to be away from it all. I thought that the movie did very good with making sure that the criminals that he was in with also had their own kind of stories going on. You could see that he cared about Uncle Ho, who was an arms dealer as well, who he ends up having to kill. Beforehand, he's telling him, like, hey, move to Hawaii, get away from this, trying to kind of save him. And I think that was a nice little subtle way of showing that he did actually care about the people he was around. I do think Uncle Hoy also has a little more going on. He really cares about loyalty, respect, and so does his guys. So it's a little tragic when they do get murdered at the hand of Ah Long, so that he can kind of be in with Mr. Wong, who I'd say is the big bad. He doesn't really have much going on for him except for just being as cartoonishly evil as possible. I mean, the iconic end action part of the movie is all about him putting C4 in a hospital to blow it up with babies inside of it. Like, as cartoonishly evil as you can get, and I think that that works specifically because he has a lot of people around him to kind of counteract that, specifically with his henchman Mad Dog, who he even walks up to him and is like, hey boss, this is too much, we can't be doing this, shit's gone fucked. Like, we can't be blowing up babies, there's some lines you don't cross. And then Mr. Wong's like, oh, I don't care about crossing lines, and fucking caps him. I think Mad Dog was good in the movie too. I liked every single action scene that he was in. That, like, last action scene between him and Ah Long was very engaging. I think Tequila having to hold on to the baby, the iconic baby scenes where he's running around, gets himself put on fire, baby pees on him. I mean, and I think that the comedic pieces really do help with some of the more darker aspects of what's going on in the action in the film. I think it's very engaging, very exciting. I really like the shot composition leading into action scenes as well as in the action scenes themselves. There is the boat scene where Ah Long gets shot with the shotgun. If you actually look, they're kind of messing with the middle of the camera in a pretty interesting way. Now, the rule of thirds, you're not really supposed to show directly in the middle. You're supposed to use the thirds around it to kind of accentuate the middle of the frame. So you'll see when he has the gun pointed towards him, towards the porthole, he's actually in the top center of the camera. But then it does kind of like a reverse shot into the cabin, and you'll see him in the top right hand side of the screen, and Ah Long, who has like the shotgun holes in his back, is actually in the bottom center. And I think that is done a lot of times throughout the movie. Also in the bird cages at the beginning, first action set piece, where the bird cage breaks into some kind of like the top left hand side of the screen, but then you look at the gun and the gun's actually put in the middle of the screen. They do a lot of things like that where you can tell John Woo really knows how to use the shot and the lens to really create like compelling pieces that keeps you engaged engaged and excited. I really liked the music. The music was very jazzy, but it still kind of had this pulsing beat and kept this kind of 80s pop rhythm to it, so that it wasn't just full like freeform jazz. I thought that that was very pleasant and kept the movie moving along in a very good way. I really only had two problems with the film. I think one of them is Ah Long, because he gets shot in the back. The last third of the movie, he's doing a lot of stuff in the action, and I feel like they kind of forget about the wound that he has. And I think if they could have utilized that more, they could have maybe got some interesting fight pieces or ways to get him around the fights or to win anyway despite the impairment. I think that that could have been a little more cool and interesting, but because they don't do that, there's some concepts that are kind of left on the table towards the end of the film. I also really don't like Tequila's girlfriend's characterization, just because I feel like she isn't really given her own like goals, ambitions, wants, or needs. She kind of exists in the story to just kind of be in relationship troubles with Tequila. That's not to say she doesn't do anything. Obviously, she gets the white roses with the notes that allows them to kind of see what's going on because Ah Long's giving it to them. I do think the white roses, though, are just kind of used as an excuse to give Tequila something to do later in the movie when he gives her the white rose, and it kind of tips off to what happens at the last end of the movie and also kind of mends up their relationship. It doesn't really feel like she's doing something as more as like stuff's just happening to her. She also does have something to do with like obviously shooting the guy towards the end and helping all the babies get out of the hospital, but I feel like she's not really a character, more as just a vehicle for things to happen in the movie. And I think that if they gave her a little bit more, I would have cared about the relationship a little bit more, would have made the movie feel a little more fuller than it is. However, both of those are nitpicks, and I think I'd give the movie a 9 out of 10, but what do I know?